Good morning.
Good morning. How are your holidays, my friend?
Yeah, it was pretty good. Pretty good. It was different this year. We lost a family member last year, so it was
Uh,
a little bit different. But it was low key. It's just me and my sister and my dad, and um we're both grown and married now and whatnot. So it's, not not like, and neither of us have kids yet, so we're kind of in that stage where everybody's kind of doing their own thing and all that good stuff. But it was nice. It was a good break and good time to refresh and reflect. So, how about yours?
yeah, so I normally spend time with my family. Um, I think I told you this about 4 years ago. My little brother lost his wife, and um, he decided to have Christmas on his own for the first time this year.
Oh, wow.
Just
Okay.
him and his daughter,
Okay.
because he wanted to make something special, right?
Yeah.
um, which is a huge part of healing, right? So, um, so we didn't have the big family together, and because he wanted to do that, my older brother decided to take his daughters to New York for Christmas, uh,
Okay.
as a present. So
Yeah.
we didn't do the big family thing this year until last week. Um,
Oh,
yeah, so we just delayed it
wow.
for 2 weeks. So Christmas season just ended for me on Sunday.
That's not a bad thing though. That's
No,
cool.
no, not a bad thing. Um, but it uh, took a little of pizzazz out of it,
Yeah.
right? I spent a lot of time with it was just me and the kids and my wife and the kids, and that
Yeah.
was good and fun. We decided that we were going to have a goal of doing one thing every day, but only one thing, right? And if the kids wanted to watch a movie, that was their one thing. They wanted to
Okay.
go do putt putt. That was their one thing. If they wanted to go like to the movie theater, that was their one thing. If we were going out to dinner, that was their one thing.
Right.
And so we got to decide all of that, and it was pretty fun going through that. So
That's a good.
that was good. Um, I got to spend a lot of time with them, my wife. So
Nice.
it's really good. It didn't have all the sparkle that it normally has. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I feel like I've heard that from a number of people. I think after just everything that happened last year in general, I feel like it was kind of watered down, if you will, this season a little
Yeah,
bit.
and when we take that out further, right? We had 2020 and 2021 that were
Right.
both like
Yeah.
some people were celebrating, some people weren't, some people were back and forth. And then everybody went big last year because it was the first time really out of COVID.
Me
And I
too.
think I think people are really tired right now,
Yeah.
like in general. I think people are tired of they want to continue being out, but the money's getting a little tighter, right? They so they're feeling a little constrained. They're yeah.
Yeah. I agree with that. Yeah. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so
So,
two things, right?
okay.
Today's meeting, I'd love to hear what you do so that it's right there for clients. I want to go through your presentation, whole 9 yards there.
Okay.
We had also said that during our last meeting, you were going to talk to your wife and see if we want to go down a planning aspect to see what it looks like and that kind of thing. Don't know if you've talked about that. Just wanted to know an update on that
Okay.
as well. And then we can move right into your deal too.
Sounds good. So short answer is I haven't. Um, Longer answer is it's still on the radar, just not at the top of the list. And the reason I say that is we're doing a number or have been. So I guess part of our Christmas presents to each other or combined was to start doing some renovations around the house. We I think I might have mentioned it. We have in the plans to build about 30 minutes north of where we're at now in the next probably 18 to 24 months.
Okay.
So right now we're starting to get some renovations. We did the duct cleaning, some of the smaller stuff, internal. The next big project is like ripping out the carpet and putting down hardwoods and all that good stuff. And then we'll move to the outside before we decide to either. We're still torn between selling and renting. I think we're leaning more towards renting, but just kind of deciding, depending on what the market looks like at that time. But yeah, so that's the longer answer is it's still on the radar. Just haven't really gotten there yet.
Oh, perfectly fine.
So to the other point, so with my work, I don't have a slide deck per se. Normally when I like, let's say hypothetically, if this was a consultation, it would be more like an interview slash conversation dialogue. A lot of give and take, bouncing questions back and forth. And so I kind of intended on that being the same. Um,
Let's do it.
so that you kind of have an idea of what I would look at in your market, because I do work in a number of different markets, and then that kind of cookie cutters to the different wherever the client is at. So with that being said, let me get rights to share my screen,
Yep.
and
Go for it.
I have a number of tabs that I'll pull up, and we can just kind of go through those.
Yeah.
So the first one is something I think is pretty neat. I don't know if you spend much time on Twitter or social media in general. I use Twitter almost as a news feed. Actually, are you able to see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is the Public Service Commission for the state of South Carolina. Surprisingly and thankfully, they run their Twitter similar to how Georgia runs theirs, in that they will actually post whenever they're having their board meetings, and they'll live stream it. So like this is theirs. They actually, it looks like they run it through their website. Georgia just runs it off of YouTube. It's like, okay, whatever. But the reason I bring this up is because you can go on their agenda and you can look at when they're going to be passing approvals for anything like rate hikes or maintenance or long-term 3 to 5 year plans for the utilities. Georgia is notorious about pushing through approvals in December when everyone is, like I said, sick and tired and just ready for the year to end. They will generally meet the first or second week of December, push through their initial proposals, and then sometimes run it all the way up to a couple days before Christmas to negotiate and go back and forth with the Georgia PSC on next couple of years. And normally they'll skip a year, but next couple of years worth of rate hikes. So leading that into this is the latest of a round or series of rounds of rate hikes that the South Carolina PSC has recently approved. So in August, the next one will hit at 14.6%, or roughly $18 per month. And then in 26, they'll have another 4.8, but most likely they'll bump that up between, or work to bump that up between now and then. So um, that's a good source of information. Like, the thing with the solar industry and utility industry in general is it's constantly changing. You've got thermo energy, you've got solar, you've got wind, and then of course general power plants. But this is a good source of updates, as well as again, it's kind of humorous. I get it with all the politics and everything, but uh, Twitter is actually a generally good real-time source of information, source of updates. And then of course, then you have this. So,
Yeah.
yep. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was agreeing with you.
Oh, okay, cool. So with that being said, just looking at the map, so in the upstate South Carolina area, the two big players, so you've got your municipalities, you've got your co-ops, and then you've got your investor ran, so your Duke Progress, and your
Right.
Dominion. So generally in upstate, it's either going to be Duke Power or Blue Ridge, both of which I'm not fans of, obviously, but um, I can understand their reasoning why on the business side, um, in relation to how we run our stuff.
It's
So this
better.
is,
It's better than Lauren's.
what do you mean?
Oh, I have Lauren's Electric.
You do?
Yeah,
Is
and it's
that a co-op? Is that another co-op? There's
yeah,
dozens of co-ops. Okay.
yeah, it's awful.
Is it really? Okay.
Yeah.
Is that obviously in Lawrence County?
No, it's in Greenville County. The
It is.
yeah, their home office is right off of Butler Road, and
Oh,
they take care of like half of Five Forks.
okay. Okay. When you start, yeah, so that was one of the things I was looking at. When you start looking at the different co-ops in South Carolina, I mean, there's dozens of them just scattered around. So that's one of the things I'm still kind of learning the ins and outs of the different co-ops. Blue Ridge, I'm most familiar with just because I used to live over there in Westminster. Um, but yeah, that's going to be one of the things that I'm going to learn more about is the individual nuances of the different co-ops. So
And
yeah,
that light blue, that's Lauren's, right?
right here, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, see that little section right there where it connects to Lawrence County, Greenville, and Spartanburg, right there at the
right,
top left. Yep,
yeah.
at right where I live.
Okay, interesting. All right. So yeah, so yeah, that's interesting.
It's all, I wish I had Duke or something like that.
And that's the crazy part about South Carolina. So in Georgia, one of the differences is Georgia has, I think, the only distributed market. So it's not regulated, it's not unregulated. It's called a distributed market. And basically, the way that it works is you have Georgia Power, and then you have all of these co-ops, and they produce some of their energy, but then they supplement um, a portion of their energy from what Georgia Power supplements or generates. So each of them have their own net metering policies, and they will sell or they will buy at a certain rate, but they will never go above what Georgia Power provides, which is basically nothing. So even though they have net metering policies, it's really not worth anything because they're not willing to go up against the monopoly that is Georgia Power. But in South Carolina, it's a regulated market. So there's even though you have Duke Power there and Dominion there, they are almost hogtied in a way because no one's going to compete against each other because no one has to really. It depends on your address. So
Right, like you don't get a choice.
you don't have a choice. Exactly. Yeah. So that's one of the things that I try and explain to people whenever they say, well, I first thing I ask them is, what went into the thought process when knowing good and well the answer, but what went into the thought process when you chose your utility company? And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you didn't get a choice for your utility? And they're like, well, why would I? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So, uh, well, you know, when it comes to generating your electricity, what made you choose your utility? And they're like, I still don't understand the question. But I'm
Right,
getting at is like most people don't think that they have a choice, but they really honestly do. It just depends on, what the numbers look like. And so as to their decision. So with that being said, going back to Blue Ridge and Duke, um, so in South Carolina, and you probably already know this if you've looked into solar at any capacity, but with residential systems, they're capped at 20 kilowatts. And at 20 kilowatts, you're pretty much not going to get anywhere close to 100% offsetting your electricity. So what that means is generally when we build a system in South Carolina, we're automatically going to look at, okay, system plus storage. So some kind of battery capability. And I'll get into that here in a minute. But basically, what we're going to look at is we're going to say, okay, we're going to build a system that is going to be anywhere from 50 to 70 or 80% of your consumption. Let's say you have a 30 kilowatt consumption, or let's say you consume 30,000 kilowatts a year. We're going to look at producing about 20,000 kilowatts. That will max out the system. And then the rest of it, we're going to supplement with storage capabilities. So batteries and that sort of thing. And that's going to supplement the rest of it, but you're still going to have, no matter what, on a really good month, you may have a little bit of an overage, but for the most part, you're generally going to have some kind of underage, which is fine because you're still going to have an interconnection fee no matter what. So it may be if your interconnection fee is, let's say, $15 a month, your bill may be anywhere from 20 to $30 a month with that little bit of underage. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So with that being said, a couple of other uh, sources that or resources that I wanted to give you before we jump into how I actually build out a system. So this is my website. I'm constantly trying to add to it. Sorry, one second. Let me just put this on Do Not Disturb. Um, Constantly putting more information on here, but really this is a good source. If you have someone that's like, well, I'm not really sure. I haven't really looked at it, or I've looked at it a little bit, or, my wife looked at it and realized that, it probably wasn't for us, whatever. This is a good source to send them to right off the bat because one, it's going to tell them just outside of reducing their bill, what kind of benefits they could potentially take advantage of.
Okay.
Additionally, it gives information on what the process looks like. Again, kind of trying to document and explain it that it's not like you're just going to AT&T and you're saying, okay, give me a cell phone. Um, you know, this is what I want it to have. What do you have? How can you give it to me at the cheapest rate? Like that's not what we're after. We're after trying to trying to meet their needs now, but we're also trying to future proof for the next 20 years. And then finally, then this is kind of what I, you know, point everybody to if they have, because they're going to have all kinds of objections, questions. My brother said this, my sister said that, my Uncle Joe at Christmas was complaining about this, that, or the other. This is where they can come to look at pretty much any kind of objection or misinformation or misconception when it comes to solar. Cloudy days, what happens if it snows? Are there any upfront costs? What about incentives? What does the installation process look like? Do I need to maintain my system? I heard that I couldn't go off grid. How does solar leasing work? On and on and on and on and on. So those are a couple of that's one source, and then the other source is going to be this other one. But before I jump into that, I wanted to bring up this. I actually found this morning. I was looking for something like this and kind of stumbled across it, but this is kind of the solar industry in a nutshell. So with traditional solar companies, you have what they call a red line model, and this is more speaking to the sales side of things, but it relates to how people have it generally experienced sales reps and solar companies in general. So on the left side is generally what um, a traditional solar company will build their business off of, which is a red line model. So as you can see, you have your fixed baseline, all your project management fees, your costs, your material costs, your labor costs, everything that goes into actually getting the system designed, manufactured, and installed. And if that is at 2.3, $2.30 price per watt, that's your first red line. And then the dealer comes in and they put in their margin, their markup of 30 cents. So then it pushes it to $2.60. Well, then the sales rep manager has to get their commission in addition to whatever their base pay is. So that's another 30 cents. So now you're up to $2.90. That's not even including what the sales rep is going to mark it up to whenever they're presenting to the homeowner. So it could be another 10 cents, which on a $100,000 system is going to be 10 grand. It may be 20 cents, so it'd be 20 grand. It really just depends on what they decide to stick in there. But the thing is, as they're going through and, as things change, timelines get pushed out, price increases get pushed through, this, that, and the other, that margin of the sales rep is going to get whittled down. You're not going to take it from the managers, and you're certainly not going to take it from the dealers, and you're absolutely not going to take it from the installers. So it has to come from the sales rep. So he gets squeezed. And meanwhile, all of these other people are doing, well, these two are doing none of the work. This person is waiting on their green light, and everybody that's doing 90% of the work and the effort is getting their commission squeezed. So it really does nobody any good. And in the end, the homeowner just basically gets, for lack of a better word, raped because their salesperson, their representative is being pressured and squeezed from both ends. And then by the time the installer gets the green light, they're rushed all the way through, and it's just a bad experience. Whereas what I work on is what they call a revenue share model. So if you think about it, everybody is kind of on skates, and the whole project is going to fluctuate based off of the size of the model. So you do have an initial baseline, but then everything above that, including the sales reps percentage, is on a percentage based price per watt. So it's going to fluctuate. If you have price increases that come through, then everybody gets squeezed a little bit, but not as much as any one specific person. So overall, takes the pressure off the sales rep, takes the pressure off of the installer, and overall, the homeowner actually gets what they need and what's going to ultimately benefit them, and no one gets pressured. If the numbers make sense, we move forward. If they don't make sense, then we walk away or we try and fix them. And that's pretty much it. So I'll pause there and see if you have any questions, and then I can jump into the
Yeah,
platform a little bit, and I can show you a couple of case studies.
yeah, that's how. So our percentages and fixed models and everything are very similar, right? When you have independent agents in our world doing uh, um, insurance or investments or anything like that, right?
Mhm.
Our margins get dwindled at the behest of the contracts that we have with each individual company that we deal with,
Right.
right? And then at Northwestern, right, they work on a fixed margin where it's this is what Northwestern gets, and whatever happens, happens, and this is what we get. This is what happens, right? And it's a set percentage uh, based on the amount of um, reoccurring production that we have, not based on an initial production, but how long you stay with Northwestern, your percentage goes up,
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It incentivizes you for the long game versus
yeah,
get rich quick.
very much so.
Cool.
So I get that completely.
Awesome. Awesome. Glad to hear it. So the platform that I utilize is called Power. It's a cloud-based, essentially it's a CRM. But
Yep.
they have rolled in the proposal software with some marketing tools and some other stuff and whatnot, and knowledge base and some industry training and whatnot. So really, it allows someone to come in almost on a franchise model and have everything they need to get up and running. So that's why I utilize this. Um, with that being said, again, going back to if I was talking with a customer, obviously I wouldn't show them this screen. I would show them the next screen, but this is kind of a peek behind the curtain, so to speak. So we would pull in their information from the discovery call, the initial consultation, and post discovery call between then and the presentation of the project, I would be able to go in and I would be able to see things like this aerial view. I would be able to go into the next screen, and this is where I would upload their bill. So most important piece that I can get coming out of the discovery call would be a copy of either a picture of their physical bill or an export PDF of, their latest bill that they got online.
Yeah.
So that would be one of the biggest things. If I could give you a takeaway, it would be if you have someone who is interested, if they come ready with a bill on hand, it's going to make my job a whole lot easier to be able to get them answers as quickly as possible. Um, Roof information, we'll put in, some general information. One of the biggest reasons why we put this information, other than the obvious, is because one, we want to make sure that it's structurally sound, but two, if it's not, or if it's not a compatible roof type, we want to be able to offer our services on that as well. So in certain markets, South Carolina being one of them, we can actually do a partial or a full re-roof as well. So if they're like, well, you know, the house was built in '83, we replaced the roof whenever we moved in, but that was 15 years ago. So I don't know that our roof is going to be able to sustain a solar panel system. So no, that's okay, thank you. I can then be able to provide that value and say, look,
Yeah.
if the interest is there, look, I'm not going to twist anybody's arms. I'm not trying to persuade anybody. If the interest is there and if it makes sense from the saving side, from the asset side, um, don't let the lack of a sustainable or um, you from going forward. In fact, I would insist that you get your roof replaced because at 15 years, you're probably going to need to anyway for fear that it's going to fall in on top of you.
Right.
So what I would say is we let us do it and we can actually roll that in to the financing so that one, you're not paying anything out of pocket because all of our loan products do not require anything out of upfront. And two, it will keep you from having to file a homeowner's claim, which will save you money on your insurance. So
Yeah.
it's a win-win-win. So we'll do that, and then once all that's filled out, then I can order the proposal, and that's the next step.
Okay.
So this is what a built-out proposal comes to me as. I've already tweaked it. Generally, it will be at max capacity of what your roof can sustain. Normally, on any, I would say medium to fully qualified roof, it's gonna generate or be able to generate if the roof was covered, it would be able to generate anywhere from 150 up to 250% uh, production, which is way more than anybody needs. But that's just how it comes. So what we'll be able to do is first we'll be able to look at something like this, and this is the reason why we did this. I'll show you here is because we were looking at this, and then he had wanted some panels back here as well. So basically it comes like this, and we can turn these on and off. And what it does, let me move that out of the way. If you can see in this upper right hand corner, it'll affect the offset, it'll affect the system size, and it'll affect the overall payment if we toggle these red to green. And so when we do that, we can see what's going to be as optimized as possible. And one of the biggest myths is that, well, my house doesn't face south, so I don't qualify for solar. That doesn't necessarily equate to be the truth. Um, Sometimes it does, but until I come in here into the system and I say, okay, you don't have any roof panel or roof faces that are going to produce anything substantial. If that's the case, then yeah, I'm going to tell you that you don't qualify. But normally, like, even if he didn't have, let's say all of his roof was covered, I could still ground mount here. And what we ended up doing was going on the shop anyway. I could look at a number of other solutions. So the point is that just because if you don't have a south facing roof, even if it's east facing, a lot of times we'll be able to generate enough electricity at a cheap enough rate to where it'll still make sense for you to move forward.
And so like that's been my personally, right? Like that's been my issue. Holy moly. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, I can see the rays. Yeah,
Woo!
getting warm.
Yeah. Well, no, I turned and it was like so
Oh,
I have this section where like this whole wall right here is nothing but windows.
oh, okay.
And this side I open up in the afternoon just because there's no more sun. I like to see out of the windows and but in the mornings if I forget to close it, this one I always close because there's a bad glare on the
Oh,
computer. But
yeah.
um, this one I open and close on a pretty regular basis. So it was
Got
pretty. It hit me. It hit me. It crossed over the mark.
it. Gotcha. Yeah,
Sorry.
I remember
Yeah.
you
I
were
mean that's the
you were
issue that
saying
I
that.
have. My one of the big things I wanted with my house, right, is I
Mhm.
wanted the front door eastward facing. Like that was
Okay.
a weird little quirk that I have. I wanted an eastward facing front door. I want to wake up in the morning, walk out my front door, and be hit in the face with sun, right? Like that is one of the things that I enjoy, right? Just a weird little thing that I have on top of the fact that growing up here in South Carolina, we know that the eastward facing part of your house, uh, when it does ice and snow,
Mhm.
melts first,
Right.
right?
Yep.
So I was like, sweet, I want an eastward facing front door because those are my primary concerns. So I have a house with an eastward facing front door.
Okay.
Um, and so I've been told like in order to get, you know, the right amount of stuff, I have to cover the entire front of my house with solar. And I'm sitting here going, dude, I'm not doing it.
I don't want to do that. Yeah. No, I get it. And it all depends on what production needs you have. Um, but also to the east facing front door. That's actually smart because after the sun gets over the ridge of the house and now it's facing the west side, that's the hottest part of the day. So now that is saving your front door from the hottest part of the day and all
Right.
that heat hitting the front of your house. So yeah, that makes sense. So
Yeah.
this is So one other thing that I wanted to mention while I'm on this screen is when we're going through again, like I said at the beginning, a lot of give and take. If they're like, well, the for whatever reason, maybe they saw a bad review on QCell or something, they can say, well, do you have anything cheaper? Do you have alternatives? Absolutely. I've got three that I can choose from here. It depends on the market. So different markets are going to have different selections, but I have three others here. This is kind of middle of the range. Um, One of the reasons I like QCell, Anwha QCell, is because they are actually, even though it's a South Korean branded German model panel, QCell is a German model panel. Um, they are actually manufactured here in Georgia. So they spent, I think, $2.5 billion on a three phase factory over in Dalton, Georgia. They spit out 30,000 of these suckers a day, and they're all black on black. So that's what the BOB stands for. They basically look like a flat panel black television sitting on your roof. They're beautiful. Um, Anti-glare, the whole nine yards. They just seamless, looks amazing. But you can see it's middle of the road. It's not going to be the cheapest, but it's probably not going to be the most expensive depending on the market you're in either. So it's a good middle of the road. So that's why I run with that one. But we can also do the same with inverters. Inverters are even more um, varied. I can go whichever way. I like in phase because again, they also manufacture here in the States, but they have a good ecosystem. So if you have an EV, they have an electric vehicle charger I can implement. If you want batteries, they have a battery. They have a number of size variants of batteries that I can choose from and select depending on the size of your home, what you want, if you want just partial backup, full home backup, whatever. The other thing too is these are what they call microinverters. So each one of these panels has one of these inverters in addition to the main inverter that's next to your breaker. So if one of these panels go out, they're all not going to go out. It's kind of like your Christmas lights. So that obviously is going to save you on maintenance, but it's also going to save you on power as well. So just a couple of fun facts there. And then what we're going to look at again, based off of the size of your system. So this is going to be the max of their system, 25,000 kilowatts produced off of a 20 kilowatt system. Um, they actually needed more of a 30 to 35 kilowatt system. But again, going back off of the cap that South Carolina implemented, this is what we're working with. But you can see the solar production in yellow versus the consumption in blue. This is over a 12-month period. And then if I scroll down here, skip this real quick, you can see over 25 years what the production will look like versus staying solar, and then more granular details here, but I'll come back to that in just a second. So basically the way I would present this is, look, here are the numbers. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is what you're looking at. On average, over the last 12 months, based off of the bills that you gave me yourself, you're looking at, on average, a $521 a month light bill. That's to fluctuate, or that's on average, that's not taking into account fluctuations in summer and the winter at 19 cents per kilowatt hour. If you have a paid off system, this is pre-financing. This is if you're paying cash, which these days, honestly, if you have like a 401k or if you have a membership with a credit union, I would honestly tell them, go there, get a private loan for, whatever you're whatever they're willing to give it to you at, and just pay cash for the system, because then you're going to be seeing, this is what you're going to see, and um, this is your price tag. So 73.6 minus your federal tax credit and your solar income tax credit, net system cost of 33,129. Think these are some feel good facts. Again, depending on the person, the personality, I'll present these. Sometimes I will, sometimes I won't. I will present this one if they say, well, I'm looking at selling my house in the next 3 to 5 years. Perfect. Let's add another 60 grand in value to it. Doesn't matter if the loan is still there or not. That's transferable. Or if if you want us to, we can put you in touch with a solar certified real estate agent, and they'll know how to market it to where you'll get the premium to be able to wash that loan out, to where the the buyers will actually come in with not having to have an electric bill or a solar bill. And then the last couple of things that I'll note is this first line annual utility bill. Right now, you're looking at paying 6,200, 6,250 basically a year on your power. Post solar, you're looking at a flat rate of $2,000. Done. So yeah, at that point, then if everything makes sense, if it
And
looks,
that would be plus the 30% consumption rate, right?
I'm sorry.
Because this only covers 77% of the utilities, right?
So with this specific, so that's where the battery comes in. So normally, yes, that would be in addition to whatever their bill is. Um, so that's what they would be seeing. So the 2,000 plus this 167 um, a month. But because they have the battery, this is actually going to be lower than that. This is probably the max. I would say it's probably going to be closer to about $50 a month, just because with the battery, they're going to be able to supplement a lot more. So that 70% offset is going to be more like 90 to 95% offset with the conserved energy that they'll get from the battery. So once that's done, like I said, if they decide to do cash, then I would just come in here. We've got a number of different financiers, but I can select cash there.
Why
Go
would you, why are you um, recommending them take a loan somewhere else rather than your financing? Curious.
uh twofold. One, because right now, so if this had been this time last year, I would have been like, yeah, we can put you in a loan at 1.99% interest or 0.99% interest or even 2.99% interest, and I would have been okay with it. Now we're looking at, we do have 3.99, but it's going to be over 10 years. If you're looking at um 25-year loan, you're looking at 11.99. Lowest is going to be about 4.99, sometimes 4.49, but that's going to come with just, and again, fully transparent speaking, that's going to come with anywhere from 25 to $30,000 in dealer fees. So that's going to be tacked on to the overall the net price or the gross price of the system, which is going to be added into the loan, which is basically going to be something that they're never going to even get anything for. It's literally going. It's how Goodleap and all these other financiers are making their money on the back end, and they're just raking the homeowners over the coals. So if they're able to privately finance it, I personally would go that way. um, the other, yeah, so between the interest rates and the dealer fees, I personally wouldn't go through here. Sometimes it makes sense. Like for instance,
Yeah.
if a homeowner is like, well, I can pay cash. Let's say they have a windfall of money, or if they, uh, just happen to have it sitting in the bank liquid, and they're like, I can pay cash today, I would rather them go here and come in and do, like, let's say a 7 year or a 10 year 6.99 or 8.99, something like that, where the dealer fees are going to be basically zero. It's going to be basically same as cash, but it's going to be financed. And then at that point, their bill is going to be substantially higher than their current utility bill, but knowing that they can pay it off anytime that they want. And then they have an end date, and they won't have to worry about anything moving forward. That would be one of the few scenarios where I would be like, yeah, that makes sense. Let's move forward with that. But that also, it really depends. And that would be established from the discovery
Yeah.
call.
Okay.
So, so yeah, with that being said, that's pretty much it. So at that point, then, like I said, one of the cool parts about being able to use this platform is I can present all of this either in home if I'm over in South Carolina, or if they're okay with it, I can present it over Zoom. And then if everything looks good, I just come right down here and I request docs. It'll send me the DocuSign documents for me to sign, and then they will go to the homeowner. At that point, I just need to get a copy of their driver's license, and I just need to make sure that I have a full copy of the utility bill for the design team. And then at that point, then we'll start going through this process. So we'll do the documents. Once the documents are signed and submitted, we'll schedule a site survey. At that point, someone will come out, basically make sure that everything that we said is the truth on, here on paper is
Right.
actually what they see in real life. Once that's checked off, it goes to the CAD team. They start designing out the system, manufacturing it, submit all the paperwork to permitting in whatever county that the homeowner is in, and they'll pay the permitting costs. All that's implemented here into the cost of the system, cost of the installation, and then once the permit is approved, then we'll schedule installation normally within the next week or so. It generally happens pretty quick. Once installation takes place, then we just wait to hear back from the utility company on what they call PTO, permission to operate, and that's when they'll come out and they'll flip the switch. So yeah,
Are
that's
you finding that clients with larger bills are getting more value out of this? Or is this like, what level of house, right? Does
yeah.
it make sense to start thinking about stuff like this from a tax write-off perspective, from a input perspective, from a monetary perspective?
Good question. So my rule of thumb is we can take a look at anybody whose bill is over $100 a month. That's kind of the bare minimum. Anybody under that, if they're like, yeah, I guess generally it's $75. If they're insistent, I will run a proposal for them, but more likely than not, it's not going to make sense for the cost of the system versus what they're paying. When it comes to things like tax write-offs and different things like that, it really depends on what they're looking for. So if someone like somebody that is going to be looking for energy security, for instance, peace of mind, battery backup, that sort of thing, that's going to be less tangible to take a look at, because someone in that boat, it's emotionally driven. They're gonna if I come out and say, anything less than $100,000, they're more than likely gonna jump on it. Um, versus, if I'm looking at it apples to apples with someone who has, a $400 light bill like that gentleman I showed you, or a $500 light bill, if I come out and say, well, your system size is going to require a $700 a month payment, they're going to be like, no, I'm not doing that. Why would I trade that for that? Because the value just isn't there. If they don't care about battery backup, they don't care about, saving the environment or anything like that. They're just looking to save money. Then yeah, I can run a report and we can see if it makes sense. And sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. It's probably about 50-50. But again, it goes back to, what they're ultimately looking for.
Gotcha. Okay.
So,
Okay. I took some good notes. That'll be good.
awesome. Glad to hear it. One last thing, I don't know if I mentioned this to you or not. This is more for you for the incentive side. So we have an ambassador program, really just kind of to make it worth your while, so to speak. But it's also pretty neat because you can kind of track your referrals as well. Um, this is kind of small, but there we go. So
Yeah,
basically,
that's gonna be a problem with SEC and FINRA.
is it okay? Even if you're running it just Jordan to David outside
Yep.
of, okay, all right.
Yep.
I
As
wasn't sure if
much
that
as I
was
love it.
okay. Well, I mean, you can always donate it to charity or something if you wanted, but I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the one thing that I hold dear in all of this is like my contracts are worth way more than
Yeah,
$1,000 referral, $2,000 referral.
yeah. No, I get it. I understand. Okay, no worries. Thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, no problem. Um, okay, I like that. I'm much more educated than what I was before. Um, okay.
All right. So, yeah,
As things go, I will keep it in mind. Obviously, I'll talk to my wife, right? We've had three people come out to the house, all for solar, and I'm getting the same stuff, right?
yeah,
That because we're on the Lawrence Electric deal, like we can't zero net out our energy bill. We can't
yeah.
do all sorts of stuff. So, um,
That's actually I forgot to mention that. So one of the things this they did at a state level is they changed the charging structure. So it used to be 1-to-1 kilowatt hour for kilowatt hour. Now with the net metering policies, they've changed it to what they call a time of use metering. So you have, if you look at your bill, some bills will call it out and break it down, other bills won't. Um, if you see what they call like peak demand, like on peak and off peak demand, that's dictating and that's documenting that time of use. So on peak will be basically when everybody's home. So in the morning time and in the evening time, and then off peak will be like around lunchtime and then late at night. And obviously they charge less for off peak hour consumption than on peak, but at the same time, if you're solar, they pay less too. So for your on peak, um, I know I've seen a graphic. I'll try and find it and send it to you. Um, but basically, it's getting to where it's evening the playing field. Like I said, back when interest rates were really low, it was basically a gold mine. You could go out there and say, I'm going to sell you a system. You're going to net out 0 0. You don't have to worry about batteries because you're not gonna basically anything that you consume at night is going to be a wash with the credits that you generate during the day. And in fact, on top of that, you're going to generate so much electricity where they're going to send you a check once a year whenever they clear out their books. And it was, I mean, it was the glory days of the solar industry.
Yeah.
Now the industry is more matured. The utility companies have put things like time of use into place, and anybody that isn't serious about a career in solar is going to say one of two things: either, oh, it's not worth it anymore, or the utility companies are just screwing people over, and they're not making it to where it's worth going solar, and solar's a scam. So, which is completely fabricated. It's just they don't want to do the work to figure out to make it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's kind of like the way that I hear the same things in my world, right?
yeah, exactly.
Um,
Yeah,
if you go look at the white coat investor, he hates everything I talk about.
yeah.
But he's just some random blogger, some doctor that decided to blog about money and has 0 degrees or certifications or anything with money. He just happened to get lucky in how he did things,
Mhm.
and now everybody touts him.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
awesome. Well, I appreciate it. That was pretty sweet. Um,
Thank you.
when are you in Greenville again?
Um, Good question. I actually made a couple more connections. Oh, speaking of which, I met one of your colleagues early last month. It's like a week or two after we met. Um,
Good. Alex Dahlstrom.
yes. I was gonna say his name. I couldn't come up with his name, but yeah, Alex. He
Yeah.
called me, um, or reached out to me on Facebook, something or other, and was like, I don't know. We started going into each other's pitches, and I'm like, wait a minute, do you know David MacArthur? And he's like, yeah, why? And I started going through, and he was like, oh,
Alex
yeah,
works right over there.
he's awesome. Yeah, he's my best friend.
Yeah, Alex works on the other side of that wall right there.
That's hilarious. Yeah, so I've met a couple other people. So to answer your question, probably sooner rather than later.
Okay. Well, just
Yeah,
give me a shout. I'd love to
yeah,
grab a coffee or lunch or something.
that'd be awesome. Sounds
Okay.
good.
Well, I gotta run. 10 o'clock.
Yep.
Gotta hit the
Same
next
here.
next thing. But I appreciate that. I got
Yeah,
a lot of good stuff. We'll see what we can do.
cool. Thanks so much, David.
All
Appreciate the
right, man.
time.
Bye.
Have a good one.